So on this short demo, I'm going to take you through the drawing stage that I use for loose watercolours. I do trace occasionally, but sometimes I do it freehand. It's good for practice and keep in touch with my drawing skills. So I shall show you how I do it. Okay, I'm going to paint this for my watercolour channel, but I thought I'd just take you through the drawing stage. So this is A4, this is A4. That does help if you've got the what you're drawing the same size as what you're drawing on, because you can make comparisons easier. Not to say that's what you have to do all the time, it just makes it easier. So I'm just putting in the line here, which is what I see across here, and I've just made a guesstimate to how big that gap is to here. And then I'm going to, there's so many different ways you can do these drawings, but I'm going to just wrap an imaginary piece of string over the top of everything here. Again, just need to make the detail here is not that important, but the distance from there to there it needs to be the same. And I'm pressing lightly because if I make any mistakes, they're easy to correct. So that comes down there, so I can actually bring that line down a little bit. That's fine. So there's a little bit of perspective here that the boats are kind of disappearing off there. So again, we can look at comparison. You can even take a physical measurement if you want to just measure that distance to that distance. So that distance there takes us to about halfway on this second boat here, and then we could perhaps even have a little look here to see that the side of the boat there fits into here about 1.5 times. So that gives us an idea. So this is a lot wider here than this, but it's not actually that easy to see. Don't worry about putting these details in, what I'm doing there, don't need to do that. And for this other boat, there's no detail on there, we just have a little bit of a highlight for the part of the boat there. So and particularly if you're doing a watercolour, you know, it's a good idea to make a note where these little bits of white paper need to be left. So that's that boat, and there's just little bits and bobs on top of the boat there. And then straight on to the next boat, and what I'll use here is this negative shape here that's between the boats, and if I draw that, that gives me the angle there. And then the same, I can take a measurement to see in comparison how wide is that to say the front of the boat, so it's the same width as the boat there. Hopefully I'm going to fit this on, and let's have a look at where it is in the height. That if we take a measurement from the bottom of the paper, should we say, it's quite a bit higher, this boat, so this boat needs to be up here. So it's easy to make mistakes, but just don't worry about going back and correcting them. So we've got someone on the back of that boat there. I tend to make things a little bit bigger, so you'll get into these things that you know mistakes you make, and what happens is then this boat ends up being a bit further over. So, but luckily these boats come in all sizes, so you can just make the boat a little bit smaller. But just, you know, if you have a tendency to do these things, be aware of it, and you just double check. So now we've got hopefully everything in the right place. And the sort of style of watercolor I do, it's a very loose style. So I have got a bit of a leeway to get a few things wrong and get away with it. But I think we're pretty much there. So we're going to have a bit of smoke coming out of that chimney there. Don't really need to do any of the drawing up there. It'd be useful to just make a note where I'm going to leave some white paper behind. And the drawing I do for watercolour is probably very different to say a drawing for just drawing's sake, because I'm consciously making a note where areas of white paper need to be left. Where these reflections are. So something else I would probably do is I'll just go over this slightly harder so you can actually see where things are and so on. But this boat off in the distance here really doesn't have a lot of detail and doesn't need a lot of detail, because we don't want it to detract away from these boats that are a little bit closer. So I think that's actually another figure there. These two boats are going off together maybe. So where I'm going to have hard edges, I'll just press a little bit firmer. Where we're going to have contrast of light and dark, can even just pencil in those darks of those windows. And I'm going to just remove that line there. It just reminds me I don't really want a hard edge there. We're going to soften all of this in the corner here, which will solve the issue that this boat is very close to the paper here. And maybe put more focus on this boat. So we can do that by making sure we've got little bits of white paper showing there for the contrast. Put more detail on this boat. So I think we're probably ready to paint that, I think. Again, look at where we're going to connect up at these two boats. Let's remove that physical line there. We'll connect that boat to this boat. Same in there, connecting all the way through. So there you go. Hope you found that useful. And I do encourage you to have a go at drawing your own drawings, not tracing all the time. I understand it's difficult, but give it a go occasionally. But go at it carefully, slowly, and do your best to get as accurate as you can.